All right, happy Thanksgiving, y'all. Happy Thursday. And we're going to be previewing the Gamecocks opponent for this weekend, Clemson, for the Palmetto Bowl.
Yeah, that's right, Karenna. Yep, I hope you're having a wonderful Thanksgiving back home with your family and all that good stuff, as am I. But yeah, this is what we've all been waiting for. Like, yes, today is about being thankful and food and family and football and all that. But Saturday's a huge game for South Carolina, a great opportunity now in what's going to be a top 15 showdown with number 12 Clemson and number 15 South Carolina. This is a game that has playoff stakes to it, whether you want to believe it or not. It's going to be a really big game.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's just dive right into it. Cade Klubnik, he's looked awesome for Clemson. How do you think South Carolina's defense can disrupt his rhythm?
Well, I think you're right. He has been a lot better this season. When South Carolina faced him last year, he really wasn't much of a threat. And I think in that game, Carolina's defense did a good job of being disruptive against him. Again, Clemson did not score an offensive touchdown in that game, which was a big difference in how South Carolina was able to play in that game. They just couldn't do anything on offense, really, at least consistently speaking. This game, I think you got to be very disruptive again on defense. You got to make life tough on him in the pocket. You got to make him force himself into some tough throws, and we'll see if that happens. I mean, look, he's been a lot better this year, like you said. He's been a little bit so down the stretch here, but I think overall, look, he threw for 308 yards against Virginia, 309 against Wake, 288 against Pitt 2 weeks ago, and like he's been really solid. 29 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. I think if you're able to get to him a little bit, especially with Clemson's offensive line not being fully healthy, that really helps. And again, Clemson hasn't faced a defensive line like South Carolina's probably since the Georgia game at the beginning of the year. Because Clemson, let's face it, they haven't played super tough opponents all year outside of Georgia. And we know what happened in that opening game of the year. It's been a long time since then. But I think for South Carolina, they get to Cade and be disruptive and force them into some tough spots. I think you feel pretty good about South Carolina's chances.
Mm-hmm. And Clemson's defense is only allowing 22 points per game. Which Gamecock playmaker? We've been looking at Sellers. We've obviously been looking at Rocket Sanders. Who do you think is the most likely to break through?
I will probably go with you said Sellers and Sanders. I'm not going to name one of those guys, even though I think those are the two big impactful guys. Let's go with Dale Von Campbell. He's really shined lately. He had the huge game against Wofford last week with over 100 yards receiving. And 2 weeks ago against Missouri, he had the two biggest catches of the game, in my opinion, to set up those penultimate game-winning touchdown drive and then the final game-winning touchdown drive against Missouri in that game. So, look, for him, he's really been shining the last 2 weeks. I know Wofford's not a really great opponent to measure up against with the numbers, but he's been really playing well, and I think he's the guy that steps up and plays a really big role in this game on Saturday.
Mm-hmm. I think if you combine him with Sanders and with Sellers, it's going to be a really tough act to stop, honestly.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And look, Sellers and Sanders are a huge facet of the game for Carolina on offense. Like, it's the same thing with the discussion of Klubnik. Like, can Clemson's defense be disruptive and force turnovers? If they can, their chances of winning are going to go up. But Sellers has been so much better throughout the year to where I think you feel like he's come along so well that I think he'll be fine in this game. He's proven he can play in tough environments before. And then obviously with Rocket, this might be he's already had some big games this year. Maybe this is where he leaves his legacy at South Carolina. It's like he leaves his stamp in the biggest game of the year where greats are made in this game for the Gamecocks. We'll see what happens, but you definitely need those three guys and others on offense to step up.
Mm-hmm. And I was going to ask you a little bit more about Sellers. He's, as we've said in past weeks, looked like a really awesome dual threat. How do you think Clemson's defense is going to counter that versatility?
I think they're going to try to do what South Carolina is going to try against Klubnik, and I think you have to deal with more of Sellers' legs probably than like what South Carolina's defense has to deal with Klubnik. Sellers is really dynamic, as you said, one of the great dual threat quarterbacks right now. When he's given space to run, he can take advantage of it, and he can extend plays with his legs, unlike anything I think we've seen this year. if Clemson is able to get in the backfield more times than not, and you just hope South Carolina's offensive line can hold up like they have been lately, they cracked a little bit last week, but if they can hold up enough to where they give Sellers enough protection, you feel good about their chances of letting Sellers go to work. But if it's there in the backfield all day and kind of eating him up, it could be a much tougher road to victory for South Carolina. So you need him to step up in the pocket, make some tough throws. You need receivers to catch passes, and you got to get good blocking, because if you don't have good blocking, I just don't see how. I mean, look, Sellers can make a lot of plays happen, but the blocking's been a lot better lately, and as a result, Sellers has had more time to make big plays.
Mm-hmm. Moving over to Clemson's offense, they're averaging 37.6 points per game, and I think that poses some challenges to South Carolina's defense. How do you think that they need to respond to that?
Yeah, look, Clemson has got, and again, that number might be a little bit skewed by the fact of, like we said at the beginning of this recording, that Clemson hasn't played the star-studded teams like an SEC team would play normally. No disrespect to Clemson in the ACC, but it's just true. The schedule's not as rigorous, and we've seen Clemson have some tight games, scoring in the 20s and stuff, but they've also had some blowout wins, which has really helped strengthen that number a little bit. I think the biggest challenges Clemson poses is kind of everywhere, honestly. Phil Moffitt is their lead running back. He's rushed for over 1,000 yards now. He is really tough to bring down, and he can be in this game. And then Antonio Williams, I know that's a name Gamecock fans know all too well. He is going to play a big role in this game, along with guys like Bryant Westco, and you might be getting back Jake Brenningstool. You're going to have to really contain a lot of these big guys that Clemson has, because Clemson's got some athletes in the receiving game. And then also, like I said, Phil Moff is their guy at running back. So it might be tough for South Carolina's defense to hang around and slow down those guys. But again, we've seen Carolina step up to the task more times than not this season. And look, Clemson does a lot of the zone that Missouri kind of did a few weeks ago. But I think if Carolina is able to hold Maffa in this rushing attack to under 100 yards in this game, maybe even well under 100 yards, that just means you have to slow down the passing game a little bit. And by that point, you make Clemson a little bit more one-dimensional. It leaves a little bit of a challenge for the secondary, but they've been pretty good this year. You just hope they step up to the task on Saturday.
Mm-hmm. All right. In the last couple of weeks, we've seen a lot of Beamer ball. What role do you think special teams is going to play in this matchup?
It's going to be massive. South Carolina had an abysmal performance on special teams last week. From a defensive standpoint, they got to be better. It has to be better. You cannot be giving up a fake punt, a fake field goal, which went for a touchdown but got called back due to a penalty. And you also need to be getting away from a short punt and not letting it hit off you. And again, these are all things that should be corrected. Special teams played a big role in this game 2 years ago. I fully expected to on Saturday. I don't know if Carolina will run any trick plays potentially. We will see. Wouldn't surprise me if they do. But in terms of special teams, Kai Kroger's got to do a good job of pinning Clemson back just like he did 2 years ago. Again, that is one of the more underrated reasons why Carolina won that game, is because Clemson always started in really tough field position, especially at the end of the game. And then also, if this game comes down to a field goal, I don't feel great about Alex Herrera going out there and kicking in Clemson, but hey, heroes are made in these moments. So if it's a field goal basically won the game 2 years ago with Mitch Jeter to take the lead. So maybe this is where Herrera gets his moment and really starts to shine.
South Carolina fans would certainly hope. So talking about how tough it is to play in Death Valley, what do you think morale is looking like going into this game? I think whoever wins this, obviously, bowl spot secured. I think they're both feeling pretty good about it either way, but it's tough to play in Death Valley. And South Carolina has had some key wins, so I think that could play into Clemson's ideas going into this game, but it's tough to play there.
Yeah, no, you're certainly right. And I think Carolina probably benefits more from this game being at noon compared to being a night game out in Clemson. So that's benefit number one. And yeah, like this game has the stakes. It has the playoff buzz to it. Like this feels like a playoff game in some ways. And again, the team that wins this game, like they already have bowl eligibility secure, like you said, Karenna, but this is for something more. This is more than state pride. This is more than bragging rights. This is more than a trophy. This is the future. Like this is potentially like for South Carolina, outside of the playoff talk, this is probably earning back the state. Like this is probably shifting the tide a little bit, becoming the better team in this state. As for Clemson, it's trying to regain some of that old magic where you had the run of dominance in the 2010s, and then South Carolina beat Clemson 2 years ago. It's trying to get that back a little bit, I think, because Clemson's having a good year, and if they win on Saturday, that's 10 wins this season for them with a potential playoff spot up for grabs. And that's the thing. The winner of this game, CFP talk's going to be heating up a little bit for whoever wins this game, especially Clemson, considering they are the first team out of the bracket right now, and Carolina is only a few spots behind. So whoever wins this game, they really elevate, but the loser, it's not the end of the world, but they're basically knocked out of the playoff at that point.
All right. Got to wrap it up with, what do you think the road to victory looks like in this game?
I think for South Carolina, it starts with playing a clean football game. You have to play clean, no turnovers in this game, hopefully. If you do have one or two, you got to make sure you win the turnover battle. The way you won that game a few years ago, despite being down 14-0, you were able to have enough juice in your offense to get the job done, and you also got the key turnovers when you needed to win that takeaway battle. You kind of don't want to start off slow again in this game like you did, falling behind an early hole, especially not against a team like that at home. However, you strike first in this game and you create mistakes from Clemson, you're feeling really good about your chances. Like I said before, you got to make Klubnik's life tough in the pocket, and you can't be exposed in the run game. You slow down Clemson on offense and do what you've been doing on offense from South Carolina's standpoint. I think you really got a good chance. And that, of course, special teams. Can't have a repeat of last week. It's got to be better.
Yeah, I agree. I think that if South Carolina really wants to pull out a win, that they need to strike first. And I don't want to see any trick plays from South Carolina, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think that the team looks fantastic without it. I don't think that they need to do that to pull out a win over Clemson. So I really would like to see good, clean football, like you said, because I think that they have overall better playmakers than Clemson. So I need them to be on, honestly, their best behavior for this game.
No penalties either. No penalties either. That's a whole other thing. No penalties.
No. I think that, you make a big mistake and you've lost the game, because both these teams look so good and they look so close. So.
Yeah, and again, I think one mistake in this game could be the difference. Like, again, you never know what can happen in these games. Crazy things happen. But like one mistake, we kind of saw it a few years ago with Clemson in that 2022 game that we keep bringing up. They made mistakes in that game that they probably wouldn't make now, and it cost them. Do we see a similar thing here where one team in this game makes a mistake at the end of the game and it kind of proves costly? We'll see what happens. It hopefully doesn't even come down to that point for South Carolina, but you really have to minimize your margin for error. Like, you can win this game with a mistake or two, but you really don't want to be making them in crunch time.
All right, y'all. Thanks for joining us this week. South Carolina plays Clemson at noon on ESPN. We'll have coverage all weekend, and Jack, you'll be keeping us updated.
That's right. I'll be out at Clemson all weekend. Should be a lot of fun. Rivalry week, top 15 showdown, playoff implications. This is what you dream of. It's going to be a lot of fun, and we're certainly looking forward to bringing you guys all the coverage on GamecockCentral.com.
For Gamecock Central, I'm Karenna Porter.
I'm Jack Veltri.
Enjoy college football week 14 and enjoy Thanksgiving.